At 2:13 in the morning, Adrian Cole stood alone on the 34th floor of a glass office tower, rehearsing the final sentence of a presentation no one had asked him to perfect. The city below had gone dark in patches. Inside the conference room, every ceiling light still burned. His phone vibrated beside his laptop. 6 missed calls from Mara. He turned the screen face down and adjusted a number on the final slide. On the table beside him sat a small brass clock in a walnut case. Its face was yellowed, its hands narrow and black. Adrian did not remember winding it, but it had been ticking since midnight. When the minute hand reached 12, the clock struck once. The sound was too deep for something so small. Adrian looked toward a framed photograph near his coffee cup. It showed a lakeside cabin beneath a pale summer sky. He stood in front of it with one arm extended around empty air. He picked up the frame. Someone should have been beside him. He knew that much. His phone began ringing again. Mara's name appeared on the screen. Adrian stared at it until the call ended, trying to remember why seeing it made his chest tighten. The clock had entered his apartment the previous afternoon by mistake. Mara had sent him downstairs to an estate sale to collect a dining chair they had chosen together. Adrian arrived with a work call pressed to one ear, pointed toward the wrong wooden item, and paid without looking. Only when he returned upstairs did he discover that he had bought a narrow walnut box containing an old clock. The elderly seller followed him to the stairwell. "That belonged to my husband," she said. "He used it to count hours he could never return." Adrian shifted the phone between his shoulder and cheek. "Do you want it back?" The woman studied him, then shook her head. "No. I think it has already found someone busy." He carried it upstairs and forgot the conversation before dinner. Mara had lit 2 candles on their small dining table. She wore the dark green dress Adrian once said made every room feel warmer. He noticed the dress only after she asked whether he remembered it. "Of course," he said. It was their 7th anniversary. Adrian set the clock beside his laptop and promised he needed 1 more hour to finish a section of the proposal. Mara poured wine for both of them. By the time he returned, the food had gone cold. A song played softly from the speaker near the window. "Our first dance," Mara said. Adrian listened. He knew he had heard the melody before, but he could not place it. He laughed and blamed exhaustion. An hour later, she mentioned the restaurant where he had proposed. Adrian remembered kneeling. He remembered a ring in his hand. But the room surrounding them had vanished from his mind. Mara stopped smiling. The next morning, Adrian found an anniversary card on the kitchen counter. Inside, Mara had written, 7 years since the red umbrella. He asked what she meant. At first, she thought he was joking. Then she described a broken bus shelter, a thunderstorm, and the umbrella Adrian had tilted toward a stranger until his own shoulder was soaked. She told him they had stood together for 20 minutes before learning each other's names. Adrian understood every sentence. No image came back. He carried the clock into his office and began an experiment.
Location is secure.
Before opening his
Details to
laptop,
follow.
he recorded himself describing a childhood fishing trip with his father. He spoke about the chip blue boat, the smell of gasoline on the water, and the way his father laughed after dropping the bait box. Then Adrian worked for exactly 60 minutes. The clock struck. He played the recording. The voice was his, but the lake was gone. So was the boat. He could picture his father's face, but not his laughter. Adrian lifted the clock and hurled it toward the floor. His arm stopped midway. His fingers opened, but the clock did not fall. It hung against his palm as though attached to it. A thin line appeared beneath the clock face. An hour given cannot be kept elsewhere. Adrian closed the laptop. For the rest of the afternoon, he stayed with Mara. They walked to a grocery store, cooked together, and ate at the table without screens between them. The clock remained silent. By evening, Adrian believed he had solved it. Then his managing director called. A competitor had challenged the financial model supporting their acquisition proposal. If Adrian did not rebuild the presentation before morning, the partnership vote would be postponed, and the position would probably go to someone else. Adrian had spent 9 years preparing for that vote. He told Mara he would work for 1 hour. When the clock struck, he forgot the apartment they had first rented together. He worked for another hour and lost the face of his closest college friend. At the third chime, his mother's voice disappeared. Her words remained. He could remember things she had said. But when he imagined her speaking, there was only silence. Mara began gathering photographs from drawers and shelves. She taped them across the living room wall and wrote labels beneath them. Your mother. Your father. Our first apartment. The lake. Me. Adrian stood before the wall as though studying evidence from another person's life. I'm nearly finished, he said. Mara looked at the clock. You said that 3 memories ago. I can stop after the presentation. Which one can it take next? He said nothing. Which memory do you consider unnecessary? His laptop chimed with another message from the director. Adrian returned to the desk. Mara followed and pulled out the power cable. He turned on her with a fury that surprised them both. You think I want this? He shouted. You think I enjoy living at that desk? Then leave it. I can't. Why? The answer had lived inside him for 23 years. When Adrian was 11, his father's business collapsed. One winter morning, men carried furniture from their home while neighbors watched through curtains. His mother packed dishes into grocery boxes and told him they were going on an adventure. Adrian had seen her hands shaking. He had promised himself that no one would ever take his home from him again. No one would look at his family with pity. No person he loved would have to pretend fear was an adventure. That is why I need this, he told Mara. Once I make partner, we'll be safe. The clock struck. Adrian stopped speaking. He looked toward an old photograph Mara had placed on the wall. Cardboard boxes surrounded a thin boy standing on a snowy sidewalk. Who is that? He asked. Mara's face changed. The clock had taken more than a pleasant afternoon. It had removed the fear that had shaped his entire life. Adrian still wanted the promotion. He simply could not remember why. Mara placed her ring beside the clock. Come with me, she said. He looked at her, then at the unfinished presentation. His hands returned to the keyboard. Mara waited long enough to see his choice. Then she left. Adrian worked through the night. With every chime, another piece of his life became information without feeling. Names remained in his phone. Faces remained in photographs. He could read old messages and understand what they meant, but they seemed to belong to a man he had replaced. Near dawn, only one labeled photograph remained on the wall. Mara stood beneath a red umbrella, laughing at someone outside the frame. Adrian knew her name. He knew they had shared an apartment. He knew she had worn a ring. He could no longer remember the sound of her laughter. A video file appeared on his desktop. Mara had recorded it earlier that evening. Adrian opened it. There was no speech. The camera sat on the kitchen counter while Mara chopped vegetables. Adrian wandered into the frame, stole a piece from the pan, and burned his fingers. Mara laughed. A familiar song began playing, and she pulled him into an awkward dance. Halfway through, Adrian's phone rang. The man in the video reached toward it. Then Mara placed her flour-covered hand over the screen. For once, he left it unanswered. Nothing important happened during the recording. No proposal. No promotion. No celebration anyone else would remember. It was only an ordinary hour. Adrian watched it twice. The clock's final hand moved toward 12. A new sentence appeared beneath the face. What remains when the reason is gone? His presentation was complete. He carried the laptop and clock to the executive boardroom. The partners sat around a polished table overlooking the morning traffic. Adrian's director greeted him with a smile and told him the partnership was practically decided. The clock showed 11 minutes remaining. Adrian connected his laptop. The first slide appeared behind him, 9 years of work reduced to charts, projections, and a single recommendation. "This room is yours," the director said. Adrian looked through the windows. Thousands of people were beginning their mornings. Lights came on in kitchens. Buses stopped at crowded corners. Someone crossed the street holding a red umbrella. Adrian closed the laptop. "I completed the analysis," he said. "But I'm not presenting it." The director's smile disappeared. "If you walk out now, your career here is finished." Adrian unplugged the cable. For years, that sentence would have frightened him more than anything. Now he was afraid of reaching the end of his life with perfect records of moments he could no longer feel. He picked up the clock and left. The elevator descended as the final minute disappeared. The clock began to chime. Adrian pressed Mara's photograph against its face. The sound stopped halfway through. He found her at the train station with a suitcase beside her. She did not run toward him. Adrian held out the photograph. "I don't remember everything," he said. "But I know losing you mattered more than losing that room." He offered her the flash drive containing the proposal. "Throw it away." Mara looked at it but did not take it. "Destroying one file won't change you." Adrian lowered his hand. "No, you don't repair 7 years with one dramatic morning." "No," he said again. The train arrived. Mara picked up her suitcase. Adrian did not ask her to forgive him. He did not promise he would never fail again. He only stood there while the doors opened. After a long moment, Mara set the suitcase down. The train left without her. She did not put the ring back on. Several months later, Adrian worked at a smaller firm on the other side of the city. At 6 in the evening, an urgent email appeared on his screen. His fingers moved toward the keyboard. Outside the window, Mara waited beneath a red umbrella. Adrian could not remember the storm where they first met. He could not see the broken bus shelter or feel the rain soaking his shoulder. He closed the laptop anyway. The old clock sat motionless on a shelf in their apartment. Beside it rested a plain notebook. Before sleeping each night, Adrian wrote down one ordinary hour. Not because he believed words could protect it forever. Because he had finally been there while it happened. That evening, he wrote, "Dinner. Rain." Mara laughed before I understood the joke. "I was there."